Hello, everyone. This is Lucas with Qiqo Chat. I'm here with Bronwyn and Kevin from AVP International, a fantastic organization that I got the pleasure to know in the past few months as we put together an event, as I supported them, as they led their own project. And it was delightful to watch them make the event over time and to innovate. Bronwyn, I'll turn it over to you first. Would you like to tell us more about AVP International and your mission and what kind of projects you work on?
Thanks, Lucas. I'm Bronwyn. I am the president of AVP International, and AVP stands for the Alternatives to Violence Project. And the Alternatives to Violence Project, or AVP, our program, is a series of workshops where we bring people together, and through sharing of experiences and a few tools, we find a way to improve our communication with each other and to work on that all-important conflict transformation, conflict resolution. Under the strong belief that what you've experienced and how you perceive the world really helps me in what I experience and how I perceive the world. And that coming together is how we start to build those bridges and resolve those conflicts. Now, the Alternatives to Violence Project is active in over 60 countries. And once every 3 or 4 years or so, we try to bring together all the facilitators and representatives from different groups around the world into a world gathering. And AVP International is responsible for, well, basically putting on that world gathering. Now, as everybody knows, because of the pandemic, we couldn't do that in person this year, so we turned to an online forum. And AVP International is very accustomed to using online forums, but in a much smaller scale. Being a global organization, we've always worked online. That's just the way we do things. We've always had a challenge of language, and we've always had a challenge of technology. So when we were looking to build our world gathering for 2021, we were looking for a platform we could work with, rather than a cookie cutter. This is what you get. This is how it is. Just put your own stamp on it and you're ready to go. What we were really looking for was a platform that we could create that would reflect our own grassroots community, our own style, our own very colorful way of doing things. We work in some very difficult environments. So when we bring our facilitators together, we want them to be in a space where they not only feel comfortable, but they know that they're in an AVP space. A lot of fun, a lot of helpfulness, a lot of very interactive spaces. And so when we landed on and found out about Qiqo Chat, we're like, that's perfect. This is the space we need to be in, so that we can really create an environment and a platform where our community could come together, enjoy the space, but more importantly, enjoy each other and enjoy the sessions that we had prepared. In total, we had 293 participants from 47 countries. For us, it's pretty darn amazing, absolutely incredible. Our event covered 20 time zones over 4 days. So we were looking to make times comfortable for people wherever they were in the world. Varying amounts of success in that way. So I kind of looked at the big picture, did the big picture work on everything. Really, it was Kevin and his team that really got into the nuts and bolts of building that space itself. I hope we can hear from him now.
Super. We'll turn over to you, Kevin, for what was your role on the project? And can you tell us more about how your team was organized? How did you divide the responsibilities to put this together?
I'm going to use their names. The other two, besides Bronwyn, on the team were Tino and Nathan. Nathan served as convener of our twice a week meetings in the last stretch, and Tino, quite a bit of background, was our webmaster for AVP International, so quite a bit of skill and contributed. And Nathan and I split up putting stuff up because we had about 60 sessions, and every session document had to be in 13 languages. It ended up being hundreds of documents, and so, to jump to one of the difficulties was leaving that to the last days did stress the team a little bit. But, some of the facilitators weren't turning them in weeks ahead of time. And so it took last minute to get them translated and put up. After we give the introductory topics about how we worked as a team and all that, I want to take you through and kind of show you some of the customizations Qiqo Chat allowed us to do. One of the challenges of putting up session titles, how would you do that in 13 languages? Think of that for a second. You have a button with 13 languages. If it's 5 words long, that's a 70 word thing. It's like impractical. So we switched to using symbols instead of words for many of the buttons and tabs. The meeting names were all a symbol in the color. And there was a guide in every individual's languages that we were supporting that would come up automatically once they selected the Qiqo Chat language platform. Qiqo Chat is amazing. You select your language and the user interface is in your language, and the documents that it loads, if we load them in the way that's designed to do, and it seemed to all work, was it would load the the guide to what the room names, shape and color were for the ones that you wanted to attend. And once you got into those sessions, the session document, the agenda, whatever, was in your language. It was all smooth. The division of labor was, we started 4 months prior with some occasional meetings, took a month hiatus, and then started meeting twice a week in the last 2 months. There was some individual research on each of our parts, and then we had a language team doing the translations, providing the 700 documents. And
700 documents.
Well, 60 times 13 languages is how many? So it's only 70 spaces over the 4 days, around the time zones. I didn't attend everyone because some of them were in the middle of my night, but the same was true of people in the Asia or Africa time zones. It's like there were some sessions for North Americans that weren't too convenient for them. So, it tried very hard not to be English centric. It tried very hard not to be North American centric. A lot of the development, thanks to the prosperity of those in North America, had the time and cycles to give to it. So a lot of the development was done by North Americans, but certainly not all of the work to put on the event. And the session facilitators, we call them facilitators rather than presenters, because they're really making it interactive and they're not there just telling you stuff. We're from around the globe in different time zones and different languages. We used a automatic language translation called Wordly that plugged in very nicely into Zoom. And so we, on our Qiqo Chat pages for each session, had a tab for that Wordly transcript to appear. And it worked pretty well. There's some challenges with Wordly, as there are for any language situation. Wordly is an AI and a transcript. It's not operated by translators. So the cost is certainly more affordable, but it's probably slightly less quality than a paid translation. But given our nonprofit NGO type environment, our budget wasn't such that we could provide interpretation into 13 languages times 60 sessions. That would be just an order of magnitude above our budget. So, we used a good choice.
Wordly is excellent. We've been recommending them. We've been using them for some of the events that we host also. So Bronwyn, anything to add before Kevin gives us a tour?
I think we can't really stress enough just how language inclusive this event was. And when we go to take a look at the space, it's going to feel a little bit we're going to feel that a little bit more. But we also had the technology area of things. There was one of our session facilitators, when I saw her come onto the screen without a headset, she was using a phone and had a screaming baby on her lap, sitting in a refugee camp at the edge of Nigeria. We just thought, oh, wow, if we can create a space where this person can present a worthwhile session with these conditions, we've done an amazing job. But we were dealing with internet connections of every type and sort around the world. From the most simple basic technology of somebody who borrowed their child's phone in order to attend our event, everything up to somebody who has a dedicated service line, a dedicated machine to do it. We were just attending every aspect of technology. And then to do that, plus the language on top of that. So if you've got somebody who doesn't speak English, who is not familiar with technology, to attend our event was really pretty amazing that they felt comfortable enough to come into that space. So not only was it the part of creating the space for people to be in, but it was also encouraging people to click that button to come and join us, take the plunge, like, try it. This is going to be so different from anything you know. That was also a big challenge to get people to want to be there.
Excellent. And I was delighted to see from Kevin and your team these new ways of communicating information without words, using symbols. And that pushed and stretched the platform. And then we were happy to build out more to make that more robust for your use case. I think what you did here is pioneer a new model that many other people will be experimenting and building upon. So turn over.
Just before we go to look at it, I'd just like to add, so we knew that we were creating a new space for our community. We knew that our community was going to be really nervous coming into this new space. So we held, in advance, we held 2 facilitator training sessions so that the facilitators or session presenters could get familiarized with the platform. They could see their documents in all those languages in their session rooms. They knew the restrictions that we were placing on the Zoom functions. So they got a chance to familiarize themselves. And also we need to give a huge shout out to our 18-person tech support team from 2 halves of the world. We had one half in the Philippines, Nepal, the other half in North America. Pretty amazing tech support team. And they also had a chance to come in for the facilitator training to understand the platform. And then we opened it up a bit further. And a few days later, we held 2 social events for all of our attendees to come in and learn about the platform and to get to know each other a bit more. So they had an opportunity to come in and see the space. And then at the beginning of our event, our first 2 main sessions of our event were all about, like, how do you build community in this space? And what happens when you click this button? So we give our community and our attendees a lot of opportunities to come and visit the space so that they could use it in a meaningful way when it actually came to the event itself.
Outstanding. All right, Kevin.
All right, let me get back to this page, and I'm going to share my screen and just take you on a little tour. So this is how the Qiqo Chat AVP World Gathering page looked like during the last session. Although we've opened back up a bunch of rooms, so when I go to show you this room, I'll scroll past a bunch that were hidden, so that it was slightly more complex looking. But I want to take you on a tour. These colored shapes here are the actual sessions that you would go to. And say you wanted to go to the second session, it would be the yellow heart room. And so everyone in their language could describe that, but the tabs across the top of this landing page, which was our basically help desk and welcome center, were what's going on now. And so now we're gonna jump to the purple heart room, and I'll show you that. But the landing page, I want to show off. So instead of saying that this is the welcome and something and put that into 13 languages and have the button be huge and push the content way down. We just went with a symbol. In the second tab, it will be the program summary in your language. And so say you wanted to go to the treasure hunt in the Yellow Heart Room, you would see that it's in the Yellow Heart Room, and then you would navigate your way there. So it just, the customizability of Qiqo Chat and their accommodation, we took out a lot of what the participant would see in the out-of-the-box Qiqo Chat and simplified this menu. You know, we supported many languages. Not this is more than we supported in the platform with the interpretation, but Qiqo Chat is versatile and has these languages now. I'm going to just demo, you know, that both the user interface and these documents change to the language we selected. You'll see that the Purple Heart Room is, do we have consensus? Changed into Spanish, tenemos consenso. And also the user interface has changed from English to Spanish. To us, this is just spectacular. And it did it for our 13 languages. And if you had your documents in the other languages they support, it would just, I don't know how we could have done what we did without this ability. You know, the other tabs were, we put this on the calendar. This is a tool called Team Up, and it goes and reads your browsers or your computer's time zone. So this chart of when things were is in my time zone. And if you opened it, it would be in your time zone. I forget what some of these other, we had a frequently asked questions, that would be in your language. And then on to some of the other tools. You know, if you had a question, you could write it in here. If it wasn't in my language, I'd paste that out, copy and paste that out to my favorite internet translate tool. And I'd be able to understand what the question was and respond back in their language. And then we mentioned Wordly. So we had a tab where in the Zoom session, the person doing the hosting would click, turn it on. And then the participant can click attend. We don't have it turned on so that it wouldn't show you. Well, I'll show you. And it'll just show you that it's a text box, and it'll stream the transcript of, you know, what I'm or whoever is speaking says.
If I can add a few more details about Wordly for people that aren't yet familiar with it. So you go to Wordly and you purchase hours of their translation service in blocks of 5 hours. And then when you're in Zoom, you become the host, and then you have to take a few clicks to connect Wordly, this tool that listens to the voice in a Zoom meeting, bring it into that Zoom meeting. And the Wordly web interface gives you the link that Kevin embedded right here. So it gives you a web page that you can then put into Qiqo Chat. You could do that ahead of time so that when you initiate the connection on Zoom, it's streaming words into this page that Kevin's looking at. And the user gets to choose between something like 18, 19 languages. So whatever language people are speaking in Zoom, in Wordly, you say they're speaking in English or they're speaking in French, and then it translates that English or French simultaneously into 18, 19, 20 languages. And it's very easy if the presentations are all in one language, then you just keep it set. If you are having people speak in English and then French and then Spanish, on the Wordly side, you do need to select now the participants are speaking in this language. And it does take a few seconds for the AI to catch up. But if I'm watching in French on this, it doesn't matter if the participants are speaking French or English. It's just going to show me in the native language that I choose. And maybe there's some other things to talk about language interpretation in Zoom. We may or may not cover that in this conversation, but I am totally impressed with Wordly, and it's like such an awesome fit for groups that are facing the same language barriers that AVP International is facing.
Yeah, thanks for that, Lucas. You know, I glossed over that. You know, there are some steps. That the difficulty for us was we had so many sessions. We had to have a tech volunteer not only to be able to sit there and Zoom and mute the noisy mics when there's a motorcycle going by the presenter, but switching the languages, because we had interactive sessions. We didn't have, we had no webcast where, you know, there was one presenter and he talked for the whole hour. These were very interactive. And so we had people piping up in whichever language. And it took, if you look at how my screen name is set with my EN and then Kevin in my country, that we asked everyone to change their name in Zoom. Actually, another feature of Qiqo Chat, you change it in your profile as your username. And then every time you come into a Qiqo Chat Zoom window, that's the name that it appears. And so I wouldn't have to keep changing it each session. And so if you prefaced your name with EN, the person who might not know you or what language you speak, or understand which language you're speaking from what you say, can see that who's speaking and then switch the wordly input to recognize the language of the speaker and make the transition between languages that wordly is understanding. And then, you know, as I'm scrolling through the choices on the screen, you know, the user, the participant would just select at one time. You know, we had a Korean contingent, we had a Brazilian contingent, and so Wordly offers a couple of dialects for Portuguese, 5 dialects for Arabic, and 2 dialects for Spanish speakers. So they've done quite a bit of work.
Outstanding. There's things here that I haven't seen because you put this event together, and when you'd come to open office hours, you made great use of our free open office hours. So you come in this week, ask a question about this, come back a few days later, next week, ask another question. I didn't see your whole event, so I'm really impressed. On that notes tool that you showed, I think that was there we go. So that is the default Qiqo Chat Etherpad notes tool that people can make many copies of. Did you have different copies of this for different languages?
No, we didn't accommodate languages in that way. I explained that people would just put it in their language, and I then would use another tab on my browser to go to a internet translate tool, paste it in there, get my translation into my language, type my answer into the translator, and copy their language back out into here.
That seems like an ideal solution, because otherwise it would be very hard for you to watch all the different copies of that document. This makes me think about what we can do at Qiqo between connecting this tool and actually outputting it into another language, so that because we can run all the text through a translator and then have a second copy which will just display it all in Portuguese or the 13 languages that you want, and the user gets to choose. So this is very good to see.
I'm glad you're getting development ideas. That would be great. If you've ever used the Google Meet tool, you can select the language that the text appears in. So I just want to take you down to one of our events. So during it, we had most of these windows turned off. These big blocks were social spaces. These icons were social spaces, but the hearts and diamonds, they were all session spaces. So I'm going to take us down into one of the final things. Do we have consensus? It was a business meeting. So, it has our community agreements and safety agreements for people staying emotionally, spiritually well during the event, because some of the things sometimes get challenging. And then the agenda, and then the discussion. And as you can see, there was quite a bit of discussion, and in several languages. And the wordly space for the translation. We customized the help link, which is turned off since the event isn't active right now, so that it was just what we honed it very finely and simply, so that even the the people that would be using that were most technically challenged. So more information was not helpful. And we just tried to hone it to the bare essentials. And we
I
found that
turned it on
some,
just now, Kevin, if you want to refresh.
okay. But we just tried to make it just the simplest thing. Come back to the question mark room, which is our help desk room, where there'd be somebody that could be more helpful, or type your question into the notepad there, which was being monitored. Type your question here, and then the direct link. There were some people's connections that were so low bandwidth that following the Qiqo chat buttons and then getting the camera icon, as you can see, we simplified, would drop their connection. So we found that providing with a direct link for those that were suffering that was a way around the bandwidth required for some of these tools. I think that's all I wanted to say about that. But yeah, one of the design criteria is we prohibit is a strong word, but strongly encourage facilitators not to share a screen, because we found low bandwidth people in Zoom, you share a screen, sometimes we bump them off the Zoom session. So, probably something most people don't think about. You think nothing about sharing a screen. And then the other problem with a shared screen is, if you've done it in your language, have you done it in all 13 languages? And then what can you fit on a screen?
Well, 2 open-ended questions, and thanks very much for that tour, Kevin. Did anything surprise you? What would you have done differently, if anything? Are there some capabilities that you'd like to see built into the platform for future use?
I would say one of our biggest challenges was outside of the Qiqo chat, but it's just one more comment on the Wordly. Turning Wordly on for people to understand what it's doing and how it's working, and then training the person who's going to sit and switch the language for an interactive session that has just more than one. Takes some time to develop the volunteer team and the presenter team to understand what it's doing and to get some practice with it. And so budgeting enough time together and with the Wordly subscription to have that in your plan going in. To answer your question about Qiqo, you were so responsive, and I got to put a plug in for the help that you provided and the changes you made to the platform during or accumulated in between our open office hours was just brilliant. We felt so cared for and understood, and that our gathering and what we were trying to do mattered. That it became personal. I consider you a friend.
Well, then that's
means you're probably not going to be too thrilled when I come in with what I'm about to say, but we're invited to offer some not so pleasant experiences that we have
absolutely
here. Okay, so I'm not sure if the capability was there and I just didn't find it, or what the case was, but in sending out the invites to be on the platform, so I needed to do that in all these different languages at multiple times and in multiple ways. And I didn't find a way to sort of store my work, so to speak. And I didn't find a way to be able to find out who had received an invitation or not. And so I was keeping manual records of that. And it was really challenging to have to continually copy and paste to go back and to change the language. I think it was also a little too easy for different people to be sending out invites. So on one occasion, I had sent out an invite 10 minutes prior. I went to send out a new invite and somebody had gotten in there in the middle, had changed what I was doing, and I didn't realize it. I think it was a little too easy for multiple people to be doing that. and a little too difficult for the person who was doing it, especially when doing it in multiple languages and without having that record of who's received, and without also on the box, the screen, where you're putting in all the names of the people to receive the invites, that doesn't clear itself. So if you, when you click the send invites, then you click the show the invite button or send invite button again, the names are still there. So if you're multitasking and you've got 7 things going at once, you're like, oh boy, did I send that invite? Did I not send that invite? And because it doesn't clear, you kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess those 18 people just got 2. So I think there's some work to be done on the invite portion, and far too many of those invites were landing in spam boxes, or they weren't getting to the recipients. We fielded so many emails on the days of, during the event of, I didn't get the link, I didn't get the link. Well, yes, you did. Let's go on a hunt for it. So I think there's a little work to be done there.
Absolutely. Well, okay, some new ideas for us. First of all, your pain point there about you got to send invitations in multiple languages and you kind of want to save the invitation in Portuguese so you can quickly get back to it. We, as event organizers ourselves, face a similar thing where we have one invitation we're sending out to presenters, one invitation we're sending out to participants, and flipping. So this is a feature request that I could see would be beneficial in both use cases. Coincidentally, just this week, we built for us admins, when we're building events, who has received the invitation, so we could see a list of all the participants, because we have to now, in order to open that up to all admins that are not us on our Qiqo team, because we don't share the participants' emails with even organizers. Like when participants sign up for an event, if you want their email address, it's important to use your own invitation or own registration system and collect all the questions you have for them, because we don't share anyone's email with anyone that doesn't already have it, to respect them. So we need to improve upon our list of who has received the invitation so that it works when you're sending the emails, you have their email addresses, then you should be able to see all the email addresses you've put in. That, and then clearing out the invitation as you send. I see how we can do that better. The reason we keep it there is so we don't forget which batch did I just send it to, but now we get the best of both worlds. We can kind of move that to the side and say, here's who you just sent it to. So great, I'm glad we asked, Bronwyn. And Kevin, what you said about being friends, it's beyond our wildest dreams that we get to connect with people, especially nonprofits doing amazing work across the globe that are bringing their passion to these online events, and we just get to support. So this we're in it. We didn't come for the friendship, but that's what helps us power through the long nights of and the early mornings. And well, let me just open it up for any closing thoughts or anything else that either of you would like to add.
Well, can I give another pain point? That it's a small one. We managed our way through it, but since we had custom help for each of our 60 spaces and a custom link, the advantage of the link tracker for all the session spaces, all the documents, was just, I don't know that we could have managed what we did without that tool. If there could be something similar because of for the help link.
Great suggestion.
Would help us, because we've got 60 lines pasted in that input box, and since you don't know which line you're on, making a change is difficult.
Absolutely, and we made some recent upgrades to the link tracker so that you press a button in Qiqo and it'll pull. Did we get that done in time for your event? So that you don't have to do any more copying and pasting from the link tracker. It just like click a button and it goes and pulls it in. Good. And even yesterday, some more updates went. You can show and hide different rooms with the link tracker. You can change the banner images. So this is an excellent area where we can build on it even more to do the help instructions and thinking about how it can be also in multiple languages, the help instructions. So I want to express our gratitude to AVP International, because when we met you months ago, we were only translating into about 11 or 12 languages, and then you brought in so much energy, and your translation team helped translate the rest of our site and fill out a lot of the parts that were not yet translated. And now we're up to like 19 languages. So that was so very much appreciated.
We're very glad to help out in that regard, and it certainly was a backbone to our event for this time. And I'm really looking forward on behalf of AVP International to see where we go from here. What are the possibilities now that we've tried this and we've done this and we've had that experience? What comes next? And also really will be very interested to watch what happens in the progress of hybrid events, both the online and the in-person, to see what happens. The good thing is that our next World Gathering won't be happening for another couple of years. So we've got lots of time to watch how the world moves in that regard. But we do hold an annual meeting that's much, much shorter and much simpler. Perhaps we'll be looking to continue our relationship, which would be fantastic.
Super. Well, thank you so much, Bronwyn. Thank you so much, Kevin. Wish you all a great rest of the day. And I found this very enjoyable. I can't wait to share it with the rest of the Qiqo admin community.
Fantastic.
Thanks for the opportunity, Lucas.
Thank you, Lucas.